Hey everyone, how's it going? So welcome to part 2 of our 53-part series where we try to beat Red and Blue with every pre-evolved Pokemon. Bulbasaur was first up and made a pretty good first impression. Level 69, only about 6.5 hours. Will Charmander be able to measure up to that bar? Well, it's going to be in tough, especially in the beginning. Unlike Bulbasaur, which gets Leech Seed and thus only has to do mandatory battles before we battle Brock, Charmander doesn't get its good move, Ember, until level 9, and even at that level, you won't be defeating Brock. So the best strategy for time purposes is to battle everyone in Viridian Forest. The other thing you could do if you want is you could battle the junior trainer once you get Ember, and then just battle Brock over and over. The upside of that is while it does waste in-game time, there is a reward that you could get lucky and get past Brock sooner. I've actually done this run twice just to see which strategy worked better. Probably better to do the other method of Viridian Forest, but I felt it was more fair to compare first runs to each other, so I'm showing you the first run where I battled Brock a bunch of times. Now, the successful battle, there isn't a whole lot of strategy. You just use Ember. If you get a burn, Brock will always use a full heal. He has 5 of those, and that just wastes a turn, which is great. You kind of don't want Onix to use Bide too many times. That can be problematic, but we do have Growl, so it's not a big deal. Either way, Brock isn't actually the big problem. Misty is a much larger problem, because Misty has 2 pretty decently leveled water Pokemon, and Starmie has excellent special attacks. So what's faster to do here is to battle a whole bunch of trainers, everyone on Route 3, and some optional trainers in Mount Moon, especially the bug catchers. Since we're going to need to level up quite a bit before we take her on, we're also going to go into this second ladder, and we're going to get the TM for Mega Punch. Now, Mega Punch isn't a great move because it misses 15% of the time, but having access to a base 80 power physical attack is going to make Rival 2 a whole lot easier. Instead of using Ember, you're going to use Mega Punch against the Pidgeotto and the Squirtle. If you get a Sand attack, you can switch to Ember if the HP is low. The Abra isn't so important, you can just use Ember. The Rattata is where it gets a little lucky. If it faints on the first hit, that's a lot better because Squirtle doesn't love to attack, but you want some decent health, as a backup. That fight usually only takes me 1 or 2 tries versus kind of several for Bulbasaur. So overall, a much better fight thanks to Mega Punch. But it would be even more consistent and a lot better if it was just 100% accuracy, but we'll take what we can get. Anyway, there's nothing much to say about Nugget Bridge and on the road to Bill's house. We're going to use Mega Punch, we're going to use Ember, and we're going to battle pretty much everyone we want to. We're not going to fight Misty after we talk to Bill for a couple of reasons. The first is we want Dig. Now, Dig has 100% accuracy and is 100 base power in Generation 1. Charmander won't learn Earthquake, but it can learn Dig, which is going to be great for our type matchups and for Misty having that extra base power. But we're still not at an adequate level to face her, so it's best to go onto the SSN. Of course, there are some trainers along the way, some we have to fight, others we can fight, especially the bug catchers, and we're going to go and face Rival 3. Before we do that, I should mention that we do get Body Slam, and that does replace Mega Punch. And funny enough, those are now 2 moves we're going to be using for the rest of the run. Very important moves. And they're going to come into play against Rival number 3 because we can alternate between Body Slam and Dig depending on what Pokemon we're facing. So for Pidgeotto, we use Body Slam, and then the rest of them we can use Dig. If you have decent enough speed and you leveled up correctly, you should outspeed the Kadabra, and this fight is incredibly easy, which is great. You get Cut. And although Charmander can learn Cut, you're going to want to have an Oddish. Pretty much the strategy going forward is Paris or Oddish or Bellsprout, Pidgey, and then Lapras. Those are the HM users. It just is very consistent, very easy to get them. Once we've done all that, you can also get a rare candy here that's optional. Head back to Misty, and in this run I didn't level up enough. I started at level 29. You want to be around level 31. Again, this is dependent on your attack and speed, because the only way you beat Misty is if you 2-hit KO the Starmie. You won't survive 2 Bubble Beams. Oh, and you have to outspeed it as well. That's probably something I should mention. At level 31, I meet both those conditions, and thus Misty is very easy. But if you don't, you can beat Misty if there's a fluke or something, but you won't. And this is why taking so many optional battles is kind of not so optional and does save quite a bit of time. After we face Misty, we could fight Lieutenant Surge, but it would cost us time, so instead we're going to proceed to Rock Tunnel. A lot of optional trainers, you can battle whichever ones you want, and this next section of the game is actually really, really easy. We want to get to level 38 as quick as possible, because at level 38, we get Flamethrower versus Ember. And while physical attacks are going to be what we use 90% of the time, but having Flamethrower offers some pretty decent coverage, especially for grass Pokemon, like in Celadon Gym. So once you get to Celadon City, you can buy some vitamins, but then it's best to get the fresh water, head through Saffron back to Vermilion, and then you can fight Lieutenant Surge. Just use Dig on all his Pokemon. That should be fine. Then you can go to the Rocket Hideout. Giovanni is also really easy. And if you level up properly, you can even have Flamethrower for the fight, although it doesn't matter. Using Dig is more than good enough to take out his 2 rock Pokemon. Kangaskhan, you think would be a little more problematic, but really isn't. At that point, especially if you have Flamethrower, just go to Erica's gym and fight every trainer there. I don't know if I did in this run, but you really want to. There is a part coming up that's kind of difficult, I mean, a long ways away. But like I said in the Bulbasaur run, you want easy access to trainers who you can beat quickly. The trainers in the grass gym are perfect. Anyway, depending on your special, you'll be able to one-hit KO all 3 Pokemon with a single Flamethrower. Even if you don't, it really doesn't matter. This fight could have been done much earlier, but I just decided to do it now. And then head to Lavender Town to face rival number 4. He's even easier than rival number 3. Every single Pokemon is a one-hit KO, except for Wartortle. You will need to use 2 moves. I decided to use Dig because I was hoping it would be a one-hit KO. You can see how little Water Gun is doing. I haven't even done that much grinding in this run. Just naturally from doing everything with one Pokemon, you start to really level up. Speaking of which, you can fight a lot of channelers here for extra experience because they're easy to fight and they should be one-hit KOs. Plus, I don't want to get too into this, but something else that helps out is when you KO Pokemon, their base stats are added to your EVs, or stat experience as they're known in Generation 1. So, in other words, if you knock out a bunch of Pokemon with good speed and good special, your speed and special go up. So knocking them out is pretty beneficial, but otherwise, nothing else to say here. Head through the rest of Pokemon Tower, wake up the Snorlax, and time to fight Koga. Again, I skip all the Cycling Road trainers. You can fight them because you have Dig. They'd be one-hit KOs, but Dig is a 2-turn attack, and you don't really need to. Now, in this run, I actually don't use the most optimal strategy. It still works. You can go to Sylph Company, and in Sylph Company, you can get TM3 Swords Dance, and set up a Swords Dance into everything as a one-hit KO with Dig. If you're at a sufficient level, because as you can see, I'm alternating between Dig and Flamethrower, and most things are 2-hit KOs, except for the final Wheezing. Sometimes it likes to use Self-Destruct while you use Dig, which is kind of useful. Happened to me in run number 2, but in this run it just decided to not attack me. In fact, I didn't get attacked a single time by anything and escaped the Koga battle without damage, so you can call me GamerChamp 3011, I guess, because we don't take damage during our gym battles anymore. And I should mention at this point, everything is a first try. That's a big reason I'm not doing play-by-play on these battles. I'm not even coming up with intelligent strategies. Charmander's move pool is so good that I really can just kind of experiment and, oh yeah, it works. And that trend will continue as we go to Sylph Company. This time, I do remember to go to the 7th floor and get Swords Dance first. There is a battle you'll have to take that's optional, but it's worth it for the rival fight. I also try and see if 2 Swords Dance are enough to defeat the Pidgeot with the Body Slam. At my level, it is not. So just use all 3, but even though I didn't, I was still able to defeat his whole team, and that's with a Sand Attack accuracy drop. It does make the fight a little more tedious, but if you remember from the last video, the Badge Boost glitch gives me a 12.5% boost every time my stats are modified. So I'm able to one-hit KO everything, including the Blastoise with a Dig. I was also hit with a Leer in this battle. I don't believe it would have been a one-hit KO if the Badge Boost didn't happen. And one thing I do want to address is I understand this is maybe a glitch, but Perhaps if we use some creative logic, we could qualify it as an oversight. But the second, more reasonable excuse why it should be allowed is I have no control over it. And there's even a third reason we can come up with, which is that glitchless runs, the intention is to play the game the way a normal person would, not just going through walls, using item underflow, and, just breaking the game. We want to play through the game mostly the way the developers intended, and in this case, this is something anyone would encounter unknowingly. We're just abusing it. And in that way, it feels more like an exploit than an actual glitch, even though by the definition I usually use, it probably is a glitch. But it's just part of Generation 1, and so why not just see it as a mechanic at this point? Probably one Game Freak didn't intend, but one we're going to be using, and I just thought I'd address it. Anyway, as I've been talking, I have been destroying the rest of Sylph Company. Giovanni's not even worth talking about. He is so easy. In fact, since Kangaskhan used Rage, which is such a bad attack, I actually can get off 3 Swords Dance. Rage in Generation 1 is also really weird. You are locked into Rage, I believe, for the rest of the fight. So I knew unless he got a critical hit, I would survive. Definitely a little overconfident, especially considering I only had 30 health to start, but hey, it worked out. And we can move on to Sabrina, which, unlike in the Bulbasaur run, is also a complete joke. Just set up 3 Swords Dance against the Kadabra, and you'll be able to sweep through her entire team. You can even use Flamethrower against the Venomoth. But one thing you may notice is I don't outspeed the Alakazam. Why is that? Well, it's because when you level up, the badge boosts are reset. So this is something going forward I also have to think about. Will I level up in the battle and maybe even manipulate my experience points so that won't happen? Again, even at this point, I was still learning how to take advantage of this mechanic that I never really thought about when I played all these years. But still, I won, no problem. Moving on to Blaine, there's really nothing to say. I mean, Blaine, I have Dig, I have Swords Dance, and he leads with 2 bad Pokemon. At my current level, a single Swords Dance and Dig is enough to knock out every single Pokemon, and luckily I outspeed the Arcanine, so yeah, this run is proceeding really nicely. In fact, to this point, it's even easier than Bulbasaur. Will Giovanni break that trend? No, he will not. And if you compare the videos, I'm actually 6 levels lower when I faced Giovanni than last time. Rhyhorn doesn't have anything great. Use 3 Swords Dance, partially that's for speed too, and sweep through his entire team. And that strategy works so well, let's do it again against second last rival fight, but this time it doesn't work quite as well. You can set up 3 Swords Dance against the Pidgeot, but the Blastoise will not be a one-hit KO. Everything else is, and if you're wondering where is his Gyarados, the rival changes Pokemon based on what starter you pick, so he doesn't actually get a Gyarados, which is pretty beneficial for us. Anyway, the Blastoise can use either Hydro Pump or Withdraw because both are classified as water moves. Irrespective of which one he uses, it's going to be a 2-hit KO, but he uses a second Withdraw, which actually turns into a 3-hit KO. If your special is low, you may lose to a Hydro Pump, so it's not the worst idea to be at a bit of a higher level than I was here, and we'll talk a little bit more about why in just a second, but it still is doable. Second try though, first fight in about, goodness, I don't know how long that I wasn't able to get past it on my first try, but our good fortunes are about to come to a bit of a halt. Because the Elite Four isn't fantastic for Charmander. Lorelee isn't too bad, or Lorelei. I know people get very upset by how I pronounce her name, but she's not a real person, and I've always called her Lorelee, so I'm going to continue to do so because I'll do it unintentionally anyway. Regardless, she's not too bad. I'll talk about the exact strategy in a second. You'll just see me going through Victory Road while I talk. Bruno is not too bad. Agatha, shockingly, isn't too bad. Lance just ruins everything. If it weren't for Lance, Charmander would undoubtedly be the best starter, but Lance ensures that will not happen. Why? Well, Lance leads off with Gyarados, which is a flying type, so we can't use Dig, and it has Hydro Pump, and decent enough special to one-hit KO me to like level 65-ish, give or take, depending on your stats, it's not great. And there are no moves I could use to make the fight better. If you were to save between Elite Four battles, Lance would be fine, right? You would save, you'd hope for roughly that 20% Hydro Pump miss, and you just keep resetting. It wouldn't affect your in-game time, wouldn't affect your level, but it would be a luck-based strategy, and I don't like those. So instead, we're gonna have to gain a bunch of levels, and this is why being at such a low level was cool to show you for the video, but in run number 2, I was at a much higher level when I got to the Elite Four, because even my second time around, with all the knowledge I gained from this run, Lance doesn't get any easier. So the ways to gain levels late in the game, if you use up your rare candies, which I had used up some of them, the best way is to fight everyone in Victory Road, and then just fight the Elite Four over and over and over and over again. This definitely is not optimal. If you were to gain more levels organically as you're going through the game, you can save almost an hour. That's how much time I saved in my second run. In fact, I was able to get it down to about 6:45, which is close to where Bulbasaur was, despite the fact you'll see him at a much higher level with Charmander. Nonetheless, I felt it was unfair to compare a second run to a first run. I definitely could have saved time off Bulbasaur if I were to retry it. So I thought I would just give you that knowledge while showing you the first run. Plus, I was able to get by the Elite Four at a slightly lower level, so that's good. Anyway, let's talk about them. Lorelei. First things first, yes, I'm at level 78. No, you do not need to be at level 78 to beat her. This is, once again, just for Lance. Use 3 Swords Dance or more. She likes to use Growl. That actually helps you because it just raises your other stats. Against the Jinx, you can use Flamethrower and just use Body Slam. You can use Dig if you want, but there's really no point. Body Slam, more than sufficient. Bruno, same strategy. Onix is a little scary, you know, if you're scared of, like, tissue paper. But you can get away with using just 2 Swords Dance and using Dig and Body Slam to get rid of all of Bruno's Pokemon. Now, Agatha, I realized I made a mistake afterwards, and the mistake was setting up a Swords Dance against the Gengar. You will be able to one-shot every single one of her Pokemon, provided your attack is high enough, but it's super unnecessary. Everything already was a one-hit KO because of Dig, except for the Golbat, and the worst the Golbat can do is there's a slim chance it confuses you. There's a much higher chance that while you're using Swords Dance, the Gengar either puts you to sleep or confuses you with a 100% confuse rate. So that was a bad strategy. I don't know why I didn't realize that until I watched the video back. And the hilarious thing is I didn't even get the one-hit KO on the Golbat, which is the only reason you need Swords Dance, because I got a critical hit. So it served no purpose. But hey, that's why these runs aren't perfect, right? Now, this Lance fight, it's gonna make it seem like I just relied on luck, but I promise you I didn't. I'm gonna lead off with Body Slam rather than set up a Swords Dance. There's pros and cons to both, but the pro to using Body Slam is you get a crit or paralysis or both. Now, let me be very clear. What you saw was insanely lucky. I got a crit, a paralysis, and it didn't move. That is less than 1% chance of happening. But the truth is, so long as Hydro Pump doesn't knock you out in one hit, you actually have pretty decent odds of winning the fight, because think about it. So long as either Hydro Pump misses, which is 20%, or you get a critical hit, which is 13%, or you get the paralysis plus it not moving, which is 7.5%, and you only need one of those things to occur, and you'll win. That is, unless you level up so much that Body Slam will take 2 hits to KO, which obviously was not the case here, since a critical hit does 2 times damage and did not take out the Gyarados. For that, you'd need to be around level 83, level 84, which is what I was in the second run. Now, I would almost never be at full health, so I would only have time to set up 1 Swords Dance against the Dratini. But once you set up the Swords Dance, everything but Lance's last 2 Pokemon will be one-hit KOs. The Aerodactyl I was scared of, but it doesn't have any rock moves. Hyper Beam did nothing, but it does get a lot of critical hits due to its insane speed. Didn't happen here, and the Dragonite didn't attack me. Didn't even have enough Body Slams. I had to use Flamethrower, and I was scared that it wouldn't even be a 2-hit KO, but it was. Pretty lucky and sloppy, but that's the battle we got. Anyway, once again, the rival fight is super anticlimactic, and I actually got the worst possible luck. So I set up a Swords Dance. I wanted to set up 3 against the Pidgeot, it used Mirror Move, and that kind of scared me because if it uses Wing Attack with a Swords Dance, it's going to do a little more damage than I'd like. So I went for a Body Slam, hoping it would knock it out in one hit. It didn't. Thankfully, I don't get attack. It did go for a Sky Attack, which was definitely scary. Could have set up another Swords Dance, but everything else will be a one-hit KO but the Blastoise. And it's just a matter of who do I want to set up against. Alakazam, because of its high special and critical hit chance, not a great idea. Rhydon wouldn't have been the worst, but decided to use Dig. Instead, decided to set up against the Executor. Again, looking back, it should have been the Rhydon, but whatever. But now the big question, will I one-hit KO the Blastoise with a single Dig? No, I do not. It retaliates with a Hydro Pump, does major damage, as the announcer from Pokemon Stadium 2 would say, but not enough to take me out. If I got a critical hit, that would have happened. I would have been really sad, but it didn't happen. So we have beaten the game once again with one Pokemon, this one being Charmander, but it took us till level 81 and we exceeded the 7-hour mark, although again in run number 2 I got that down to 640. So all of these are possible to do faster, but it would take me way too long to do them like 100 times. We're just going to see the first attempt, and that way we can compare apples to apples. But that is Charmander, and is it better than Bulbasaur? I don't know. Definitely a larger portion of the game is beyond easy. Bulbasaur definitely struggles for more parts and more fights are inconsistent, but we still do have to get by the Gyarados. It's a big part of the run, and it sucks because I would happily concede that Charmander is better than Bulbasaur, but it isn't. 12 levels higher. In my second run, it was level 83, so even higher than that. And so while it took me 2 hours less of actual real person time to do this, based on the two metrics I think matter most, Bulbasaur is superior to Charmander in the solo itemless run. But in a couple days, we're going to see if Squirtle, who many of you have said you believe to be the best starter, is able to take that crown. So stay tuned. We are trying to get to 200k subscribers for no real reason. It's just an arbitrary number, but I think it would look cool. And yeah, let's try and do it. Anyway, next video out in 2 or 3 days. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.